You don't honestly. You don't know how excited that music. What's that? What's that music from, Katherine?
Bruce Lee film.
Yeah, which one?
Into the Dragon.
Okay, right. Come on now. Come on. There's no Enter the Dragon's all funky and fluty.
Okay. Dragon Let's Rip. Ride the Dragon.
Right, that was Zama Maguire in Grange Hill.
Who's chasing it?
Chasing the dragon and got burnt. That was from The Big Boss. Love a bit of Bruce Lee. As you know, we kind of dip in. I recently did a podcast with the Bruce Lee clones of Bruce Lee guys, where we watched a Bruce-exploitation movie. And I love Bruce. Every now and then I go through a big Bruce Lee jag, right? And I bought all the DVDs first time they came out, and I bought them the second time they came out. And one of the joys of the second time is they had commentary by Bey Logan, right? And Bey Logan knows his shiz. When it comes to Bruce and martial arts movies, this guy is the Don, right? I'm thrilled to say we got Bey Logan on the line now. Good evening, Bey.
Hey, how's it going, Ian? How are you?
Very, very well, man. Now, you're in Hong Kong. What time is it there?
It's now 7 a.m. in the path of the hurricane. So, you know, if you suddenly hear a loud rushing of wind, it's not the end of days, but it might be the end of Beys.
Hang on. Hey, he's good! Hey! How close is it coming to you guys?
Well, we're not 100% sure. It just hit Philippines, and then it might do a left turn or a right turn, depending. I mean, who knows the mind of a hurricane.
Wow.
So we'll see. Typhoon.
Man alive.
It's a typhoon, yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying, Bey, is if you do, and God forbid this happens, but if you get killed while we're doing this link up, we will win an award. That is a guarantee. So
absolutely, Ian. You know, I die so your name will live.
Thank you,
and by
brother.
the way, I've left it in my will, brother, that if I do fly off into that, great kung fu school in the sky, all my DVDs and Bruce Lee materials will be sent over to your gaff.
Oh, you joke, and you tease me, Bey, because you must have like loads of Bruce Lee stuff.
I wish you'd come to Hong Kong to visit my hidden fortress, because I actually have. We sell it on our website, realeast.com. All of the existing surviving Bruce Lee memorabilia, the lobby cards, the posters, everything that was ever printed.
Yeah.
And in fact, for all of those Golden Harvest classics, the Angela Mao movies, you're old school, you know who I'm talking about. Angela Mao, Jimmy Wong Yu.
I was in New York a couple of months ago, and I went there to see some concerts. They were cancelled, so I had 5 days in New York with nothing to do. So I made a pilgrimage to Angela's Chinese restaurant.
In Queens.
Yeah, which is in the middle of nowhere. But I went there and... here's the thing. She wasn't there, but I had a lovely meal, and it was just a thrill being there. And at the end of it, I went up to the guy at the thing and I said, "Are you George?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Are you Angela's son?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Man, listen, I've got to say, I love you. I've come all the way from the UK. I love your mum." And it was just a thrill. And he was thrilled that someone from the UK knew who his mum was. It was great, man.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan, and we just starting to put on the website some of her memorabilia from her classic films. But that was part of what I wanted to do with the book, 36 Chambers of Kung Fu Cinema, was to kind of bring a new generation and make them aware of the wonderful heritage of Hong Kong Kung Fu films. Bruce Lee, of course, was the guy that put us all on the map, and then also to show what else was there and to give it some context.
Okay, because I know that you've got, have you written 2 books? You've got 2 books on the go.
2.
Are they both done?
Correct. The second one's almost finished. It's called Bruce Lee and I.
Okay, well,
and the one that's available now, the one I sent to you, is called 36 Chambers of Kung Fu Cinema.
This guy's showing off. It takes me 4 years to not even finish a book. He's written 2 books. It makes me puke.
Are you what are you writing a book about?
I've been trying for the last 4 years. I've been trying to write a book about working in TV and all the TV shows I've done. Because I've done hundreds.
Brilliant.
But it's just sitting down, and I just haven't got that mentality that you've obviously got, Bey, of being able to sit down and go, right, I'm gonna do the writing now. We're gonna make this happen. So go on.
I made 4 movies in China this year, and I don't know if you've ever been on a film. You've been on a film set, haven't you? You know, it's like, it's very exciting to watch a film, but when you're actually making it, there's a lot of sitting around, particularly if you're the producer. And so I was filling those times by having a laptop on the set, and in China the Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy, so I can't be like listening to your show like I normally am. So I would be just writing the book about Hong Kong film while making a Chinese film.
So just give us a bit, because before we go on to the 36 Chambers of Kung Fu, before we talk about that, just give us a bit of background, how you ended up in Hong Kong, how you ended up working on Chinese movies.
Well, I was kind of, when I was a kid, watched kung fu movies in like everybody did in the 70s. But unlike everybody else, when my dad was an accountant, my mum was a nurse, and they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to go to Hong Kong and make kung fu movies.
I love it.
Which they thought was a bit of an odd thing to do. And then I kind of was doing martial art magazines, Combat Magazine, and then I founded a magazine called Impact Magazine. And it was always with the idea that I would interview people and in interviewing them, kind of get the connections I needed to make films. And then I was really just, every time I would interview somebody, at the end of the interview, I would say, and by the way, if you ever know of anybody who wants a white guy to write and produce a film, I'm your guy. And finally, somebody said yes. And I actually produced my first film, was a Hong Kong film, which we shot in England, in Birmingham, Paris, and Hong Kong.
That's a terrible Birmingham accent.
Sorry, I've lost it. I've lost it from all the years ago. Colour sauce and chips. But I was like,
yeah, go on.
I went to, so then I did that, and then another person that I know was making a film in Hong Kong and said, hey, would you like to come over and work on that? And I kind of came over. I figured, okay, well, I'll just see how this goes. And 20-something years later, I'm still seeing how it goes. And I just felt there was a niche. I found there was a niche for one guy, at least, to be the resident writer-producer, white guy writer-producer in the industry. And that's been me. Lucky me.
Yeah, no, it is lucky because when I was a kid in sort of the early 80s, so 83, 84, and I was, 10, 12, 11, 12, watching all these Bruce Lee films and then all the Jackie Chan stuff and all of that, that's what I wanted to do. You are doing what you stole my career, Logan.
I know, I hear that a lot. But there's a saying in Chinese, like, when you drink the water, remember from where the water flows.
Yeah.
So I think I've always pursued that in that I've been making films in making movies in Hong Kong and in China, but always having a secondary career as a historian and kind of remembering the rich tradition that we're following.
Yeah.
So I never felt the two were contradictory. I always felt that what influenced the work I was doing was my devotion to the culture and to the film history.
Okay,
which a lot of the
I was going to say the 36 Chambers of Kung Fu. So that's the first book. So tell us about that. What is it? And I'm going to tweet the link to your website and stuff.
Thank you. It's volume 1, and what it is, it's the total in its totality. It's 36 films which I consider to be classic films, and viewing them through my unique perspective. And my first book, which I did more than 20 years ago now, which was Hong Kong Action Cinema, was necessarily an outsider's guide, because I was just a fan who'd seen a bunch of kung fu movies.
Yeah.
And this one's like an insider's view, because now I know all the people who actually made these films. So I'm offering a perspective of what the films meant to me, what their place was in Hong Kong film history, what happened day by day on the making of the film, what effect it had. And then at the end, it's kind of a fun thing, words to live by. It's actually a quote from the film, which is kind of a life lesson you can take away from it. So each chapter is broken down into a section saying, this is where I first saw the film. This is where I first met the guy who was in the film. This is the funny story. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, go on.
I do a chapter about writing kung fu. And then there's a character that stars and was directed by Bolo Yeung, the guy from Enter the Dragon.
Bolo!
The most muscular Chinese. Bolo! I'll find someone with whom you can fight. Bolo! So my first encounter...
I was going to say, Bey, Katherine is sat here laughing at us, shaking her head, like every other woman I've tried to get interested in karate movies and kung fu films, just like going, I don't see it. I cannot see...
I feel like the only girl in the common room again.
I know. That was actually the Big Boss soundtrack you played at the beginning of the segment, by the way.
As if you weren't going to know that.
As if I wouldn't know. But anyway, so I talk about when I first came to Hong Kong to persuade Bolo to come and be in a live show in Huddersfield, England. It's a true story. And I tracked him down to, they call the Bolo Triangle. If you walk it, he will come. It was like a gym, a coffee shop, and another area, and a kind of a Chinese seafood restaurant. And if you walk that, you'd find Bolo. And I indeed found him.
Wow.
And about what happened in terms of why he didn't come to England and how he got pissed off with me.
Yeah.
And then flash forward to years later when I got hired to write a film for him. And I'm just thinking, he's going to remember that incident in the past, and I've just had the soundtrack to the trailer for his film Chinese Hercules, Bone Breaker, Neck Snapper, the Muscle Man Monster, the martial arts. And I'm thinking, and that's the guy that's chasing me around the Bolo Triangle.
Yeah.
So you get that story, and then you go into the history of, and by the way, 1991, wherever it was, Bolo got hired to direct a movie, and this is what happened, and here's what happened on the movie, and this is so on and so forth. So you've got to get my perspective of the individuals, and then, when I do a commentary, there's a lot of stuff, even as fast as I talk, I can't say everything. There's information that I've got that I can't say in time.
Yeah.
So with the book, I actually can go into some detail and go into the historical and because I'm obviously, as you know, I'm practicing martial artist as well in the Hung Gar Kung Fu. So I'm also talking about the martial arts in some detail, the historical detail, and the film connections in some detail, more than I could. So to some extent, the chapters, there's a section that's an expanded commentary.
Here's the thing, though. You're learning kung fu. Your kung fu is terrible. And I'm training, and when I'm ready, I'm going to come over there, and I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to challenge you.
Really you know what's funny? This I felt much the same as you. Last March, I entered a kung fu tournament here. Have you seen the film Iron Monkey?
Yes, I think I have. Yes.
With Donnie Yen?
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I mention it is it was promoted by a girl called Lei Fai, who was actually one of the bad girls, and she's the villain in Iron Monkey. But anyway, she's got a big kung fu school my daughter trains, and she had a tournament, and so I got entered into this tournament, and I was in the seniors division, and I think it was best dog in show, but I got a medal, so I was like, I was really happy.
Right.
Yeah, because it was like I haven't competed for a long time.
And the joy about this book, you very kindly sent me the ebook, and I don't understand ebooks, so I just don't understand how people read them. But I flicked through it. It's not just with the 36 Chambers of Kung Fu book. It's not just Bruce Lee. In fact, I think there's only one Bruce Lee film in there, isn't there?
Correct.
Fist of Fury.
Trust me, you'll get your Bruce Lee fix from the next book, which is all Bruce Lee all the time. And there's another big doorstopper, and this one is 500 pages, and part 2 of 36 Chambers is going to be the same length. So it's a massive tome, and the Bruce Lee one's going to be even longer.
But here's the thing, because people think, right, karate films, martial arts, also people call it karate films, and really they're kung fu films, but people think martial arts films, they think Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's it. That's all they think. And they miss out on the beauty of all the Bruce-exploitation stuff that we talk about, of Sammo Hung, of all of these other wonderful, of Angela, all of these wonderful films that
I mean, Jimmy Wong Yu, who, I actually probably commit acts of sacrilege both in 36 Chambers and in the Bruce Lee book. I think that as a director, Wong Yu, if you look at the Chinese boxer at Shaw Brothers, is far more accomplished than Bruce Lee as a director. I'm not talking about as a martial arts choreographer, but as a film director, Wong Yu was much more. If you look at The Brave and the Evil, the film that Wong Yu did in Taiwan when he moved there, and One Arm Boxer even, he's like a very gifted director, but he didn't have the charisma of a Bruce Lee. So I'm kind of looking at Bruce in the context of the whole Chinese film industry. And there's things interesting, like in the Bruce Lee book, there's this, the feeling you probably would think after Bruce Lee died, there were all these guys in the charts in Hong Kong and making hit movies who were doing kung fu movies. All the films after Bruce Lee died, the big hits were comedies.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
There was a film called House of 72 Tenants, made by Bruce Lee's childhood friend Choi Yun. And that film made more money at the Hong Kong box office than Enter the Dragon.
And here's the thing with Bruce Lee, right? He was brilliant, and he was an innovator. Those things can't be. But also, he died really young, so he has that kind of James Dean factor that he never actually made a bad film. So he's in some ways he's kind of cheated in the same way that James Dean did. He made only 3 films. No one could go, oh, there was that bad Bruce Lee film, you see.
No.
Because he never did
one. I agree with you. I halfway agree with you. The other thing is, I think that we were cheated in that we didn't get to see him really fulfill his potential as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I know.
But, there's a Sufi saying, if you would dishonor a man, let him live. So I think there's something to be said for the fact that if Bruce Lee had lived, perhaps there would be aspects to who knows what would happen.
This is how rubbish our show is, Bey. For some reason we did a phone in a few months ago. What films do you think Bruce Lee would have made if he'd lived? And someone said if he'd have lived in the late 80s, he would have definitely made a cop film where he was paired up with a dog. And I can kind of see him, you know, doing
Top Dog with Chuck Norris. Actually, there's a chapter in my book which is called in the Bruce Lee book, which is called Untold Tales of the Dragon, which actually details all the scripts that Bruce had in development at the time of his demise. So that actually goes into some detail on that, and also looking at films that he was meant to make that were made by other people. So I hope that answers some of that question. You know,
did any of them involve a talking dog?
Not as yet, but
so we got the 36 Chambers book, 36 Chambers of Kung Fu, which is out. And I'm gonna tweet all the websites and things, I promise. And then you've got the Bruce Lee book that's coming out later. So what is that?
Right. The Bruce Lee book is called Bruce Lee and I, and it is the way that's structured is it is one chapter talking about an aspect of Bruce Lee and one aspect talking about my unique perception of it.
Yeah.
For example, we do a chapter talking about Bruce Lee's classic film, Fist of Fury. And then the next chapter is talking about me playing Petrov, the Russian, in the TV remake of Fist of Fury with Donnie Yen. So I'm talking about like when I was a kid in Peterborough, England, watching at the ABC Theatre Fist of Fury, I would think, how would it be to be Bob Baker fighting his teacher Bruce Lee in Fist of Fury? And then I had that experience because Johnny got me to play the Russian. Let me take care of him. So I was fighting on screen in the TV Fist of Fury. Yeah. So then we have another chapter talking about Bruce Lee's Game of Death, the version released in 1978, which is like a guilty pleasure of mine. And the next chapter is talking about how I discovered the Bruce Lee Game of Death dailies in the archives. So
this is for those that know Bruce Lee. Last film he was kind of doing Game of Death, and he got called to do Enter the Dragon. So he filmed about 45 minutes of Game of Death, and then it was shelved.
Right.
And then a few years after his death, they made which I mean I love it, but me too. It's kind of awful in places. But they made this film where they had people pretend to be Bruce Lee, and then right at the end they tacked on the footage that Bruce Lee has shot. Now, if you were unlucky enough to get the UK VHS version in the 80s, that out of the 45 minutes that were available, they used 6 minutes. And it was you're going, what are they doing? But there was the rumour that there was loads of this footage that had been filmed and had been lost and no one knew where it was, and did it actually exist and was it a myth? And you found it, man.
Correct. I was in terms of Kung Fu cinema, I've always been in the right place at the right time. And I actually was at a company where they were just going through the Golden Harvest archive. And I went down there and you needed somebody like myself who was actually an active professional in the business, because a fan would not have been given access.
Yeah.
So I went in there and I could tell the gate, I could kind of like, order, I command you. Wow. I could say to them, you shall not pass. I said to the gatekeeper, go in there and find me anything with Bruce Lee's name on it that you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And the guy came out with these rusting reels of film, and he goes, this has got like Game of Death written on it. And I'm like, lace it up, big boy. And then I just sat down. Can you imagine, Ian? I sat down in the screening room, and there was all bunches of other junk. And then suddenly there's this footage of, like, you know, you've seen movie dailies, the same scene, the same. I said, wait a minute, these are the dailies from Game of Death. Yeah. And I'm actually not a great believer in, like, the spirit of Bruce Lee moves through the world. You know, I'm quite practical. But there's a shot of Bruce where he walks out to fight Chi Han Zoi's character, and he kind of raises his hand towards the camera. And my chair in the screening room kind of moved back. It was this energy came off the screen. And it was just extraordinary. I've never had that moment before or since, but it was really remarkable. You could say it was like just a psychological reaction, but the sheer energy and seeing this footage, which I literally had dreamt of, don't take it the wrong way, but I'd fantasized about.
Oh, mate, my mum was so worried about me growing up as a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy. My walls, and for a while my ceiling, was covered in pictures of Bruce Lee. Now, all those pictures is either him in like a little vest or him naked and sweaty. So I've got all these pictures.
I know. My mum was the same. You know, why is my son suddenly got all these half-naked Chinese men holding like wooden sticks?
Yeah.
It just...
I used to practice my nunchuckers in front of the mirror, and I didn't have foam chucks. I had the wooden ones with the swivel
real
action.
deal.
The number of times I smacked myself on the back of the head, those things hurt, man.
I've heard you, Ian. I've heard your show. This explains a lot.
and I just to remind people, it is 7 o'clock in the morning where he is. That's why he's acting like this. Can I ask you a question? Talking about martial arts films, right? Because one of my favourite films is Shaolin Soccer. You would like
Right.
this film, Katherine, because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
Chow and Sokka together.
It is hilarious. Stephen Chow.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Because he did that other film whose name escapes me, and then he kind of disappeared.
Kung Fu Hustle. He did Kung Fu Hustle.
And
That's a great movie.
he was going to be like the next, great star in, combining Bruce Lee and the comedy of Jackie Chan. But then he just sort of disappeared. What's he up to?
He's still around. I mean, he's more interested in directing now, and he had a huge success a couple of years ago with this wonderful movie. You should track it down. It was called The Mermaid, which is very funny. And then last year, he and a producer-director who you'll know of called Choi Hark, who did Once Upon a Time in China and everything, they did another version of The Monkey King together. So he does a film a year or a film every other year. But he's not interested in acting anymore. He has an office in an area here called Lang Kwai Fong, which is like the bar district, like a Soho district. And he goes there and develops stuff. I meet him occasionally on passing, or I go and see him and chat. He's a big Bruce Lee fan. Big Bruce Lee fan.
Tell Stephen Chow he has to come on this show. We want Stephen Chow.
Yeah, you know what? He's so funny. You're more likely to get him on your show than somebody is from Hong Kong TV and radio, because he probably figures the people from here will ask him, kind of impertinent questions, and you'll be very respectful, you would.
Of course. And then I'm going to come and kick his ass.
Yeah. By the way, you were talking about my book, 36 Chambers of Kung Fu Cinema. It's part 1 and part 2. And what we're going to do in the future is a huge kind of hardback edition with bonus features. And it'll be like Gene Simmons' The Vault. I think that's such a good idea. And that'll be like this massive kind of Egyptian Book of the Dead. And I will actually come to people's house and deliver it and then do a Kung Fu form in their front garden.
Will you be charging the $50,000 that Gene Simmons charges for the personal delivery service?
As soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm in. I'm so down for that. I mean, there must be, because how many people do you need to do that before you can retire?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there must be somebody, some folks out there. But anyway, there is going to be a special edition later. But as of now, it's print version, the e-copy version, and it's part 1. And then I'm doing the Bruce Lee book, which of course I'll send all this to you, Ian. And then part 2 of 36 Chambers. And then, I don't know, I've written one novel. I might write another novel after that.
We're all just turning our noses up at you now. Now you're showing off with novels and things as well. Now he's showing off.
Meanwhile, Ian's trying to colour in the title page of his book.
This is still my side gig. My main job remains making films. We did a picture about 2 months ago in China called Vixen, which is like Kung Fu Die Hard with a fighting Asian female, like the modern Angela Mao.
Yes, man.
Trapped in a building. We have a wonderful actor, Brian Larkin, who was in. You should have him on your show. He was in London Has Fallen.
Oh yeah.
He's in the film. He's great. Scottish actor.
Well, listen.
And then
go on.
Yeah.
No, go on. You want to say?
We're starting soon on a film called Loser is the Winner, which is going to be like $1 Million Baby of China. It's about women's boxing.
Bey, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. If you want to go to the website, guys, it's realeast.com, and it's real as in cinema real, REEL, east.com. Anywhere else that they should go and have a look at, Bey, or is that the place?
It's all there. That's the one-stop shop for all. It's got more funk than a Shaolin monk.
There we go.
All your Kung-Furious needs, go to Real East, www.REEL, EAST.com.
All right, go.
And always a pleasure.
It's nearly 8 o'clock, Bey. Go and write another book, for God's sakes.
I will.
We'll speak again soon, brother.
You're my second favourite guy called Lee after Bruce, so it's always a pleasure.
I'll have that. Bey, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. How can he have so much energy at 7:30 in the morning?
Coffee?
I don't think it is. I bet he was writing a book when he was talking to us.
All the voices and everything.
I like him a lot. I know it's a bit geeky, but I really do. I dig him.
A bit.
Sorry?
Smidgen.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's get someone on to talk about My Little Ponies or something next week. And that's genuine, because you like My Little Ponies.
I don't. My kids do.
Okay, fine. We'll get your kids on to talk about it. I don't care. I'm not going to listen. 03.
Wow.
Sorry? 03. Sorry?
You're not sorry, though.
No. 03.
Talk Radio. Listen, phone, talk.
Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.